Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation you're about to see between me and another comedian about religion and comedy. These are conversations I'm calling disorganized religion. God bless. And for those atheists out there, may nothing await you after this life.
Let's do it, baby. Hey, nerds. Welcome to another edition of Disorganized Religion. I am your host, Seth Lawrence, as always. And this week, I am blessed to be joined by the voice of a generation, a true unsung hero
and a
of
patriot.
stand-up comedy, and sung hero. Really, you can find him almost everywhere. You just might not know that you can find him everywhere. The mighty Liam McEneaney. Thank you, Liam. Voice of a generation joining me today. I'm so excited.
That's very humbling, calling me a voice of a generation. I appreciate that. It was totally unexpected.
Right.
Frankly, I wish you wouldn't keep calling me that, but you do you, Seth. I can't.
I mean, I just feel some people deserve the accolades they've earned. And Liam, you have earned to be the voice of a generation.
That is true.
I don't know which generation exactly, but at least one of them.
I would say it would probably be the Olmecs.
The old Mex?
Olmecs, the Mesoamerican tribe that preceded the Mayans and the Aztecs.
Got it. That is a good generation to pick.
I'm the voice of the Quetzalcoatl generation.
Also a good generation. Very believing and loving people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When they sacrificed a human being on an altar and tore his heart out of his still living body, they really stood for old-fashioned values.
They did.
I say make Northern Mexico great again.
Amen. Northern Mexico, i.e. Texas. Oh my goodness.
Not since the Mexican-American War, brother.
Yeah, baby. I mean, okay, so Liam, I want to talk to you about when you started stand-up when you were 19.
That is true.
So you've been in the game for a decent minute, and you've worked with some amazing, talented people that everybody would know. Mm-hmm. So what got you started in stand-up?
Well, Seth, it's something that I've always wanted to do, something I knew I wanted to do as a little kid. Always had fun being the center of attention and having people give me positive feedback. And I said to myself, what is the best way I can do that while doing the least amount of work and not having to wake up early in the morning?
Yeah.
And it looked like stand-up comedy. So when I was 17, I dropped out of high school and I bummed around for a bit and I joined a couple of improv groups. And I did that for a year. But they were not great improv groups, and a lot of things happened. I ended up dropping out, but I still had that creative urge. And I kept in touch with a couple of people from this one improv group I was in, and this kid would go to this open mic in the Lower East Side called Surf Reality. And so on Mother's Day that year, I forget which year it is offhand, but I basically made a deal with myself, which was I would, I also wanted to go to college, and I made a deal with myself that I would go to college, I would do open mics and go to college. And if I didn't like the open mics, like my biggest fear, honestly, and this sounds weird now because I'm talking about a 19-year-old, but I could have started when I was 12 if I'd really had the guts. But my biggest fear was I would do stand-up and it would become immediately obvious that I wasn't good at it. And that was my only life dream. And, when you're 19, you're like, oh God, if my dreams don't come true right now, they're never going to come true. And my life's going to be terrible. And everything's got to happen right now. Luckily, I didn't know how bad I was when I started. So it was fun. Because when you're starting comedy, you have to have that shield of self-delusion to not know how bad you are. Because if you ever really understood how much people hated watching you, you would quit. Because there's just no way to, But anyway, very long story short. I was doing open mics at night. It was a very interesting time to start stand-up in New York City because there was a lot of blending of the open mic and professional and indie comedy and what they called alt comedy worlds. I'd be like 19 years old and going to a Halloween party in my friend's apartment, and there was like Janine Garofalo and Todd Barry, and like really like big comics who I really admired a lot.
Yeah.
It was just a very interesting time. And then I got a tour. I did like a college comedy game show tour. So I just
Hmm.
dropped out of college to do stand up, and that's that. That's the story in a nutshell.
Yeah. So you dropped out of college to then go to college or
Yes,
colleges.
I did. I dropped out of college where some people liked me to go visit other colleges where nobody liked me. Nobody wanted to hear
Right.
me.
So the college tour circuit, I guess the college circuit has, I mean, I've heard horror stories about, people going to perform at colleges, sometimes great gigs, but
Mhm.
also terrible gigs.
Right.
What was your experience like doing a game show? How was it different than doing stand up, you think, or?
So what it was there used to be a game show called You Laugh, You Lose.
Oh,
No,
okay.
well, it's called Make Me Laugh. That's it. Our tour was called You Laugh, You Lose. We were the
Uh-huh.
bootleg of Make Me Laugh, and it's a show where basically we would pull a college student up on the stage. There was a big fucking wheel that we had to set up and dismantle and haul around the country in a van. Um, they would spin the wheel, and like whatever the amount of money it was, that's the amount of money that these students could win if these three
Yeah.
professional comedians just could not make them laugh. Um,
Okay.
and when we met with the booker in Grand Rapids, he told us that Sinbad had been on that tour at one point in his early career. So
Yeah.
that's how long the tour was running.
Jeez. With
And
that game show, you mean? Or
with that game show, yeah.
uh
So of course we're three open micers from New York City.
yeah.
So we're not making anybody in Youngstown, Ohio laugh.
Yeah.
So first we did 10 minutes of stand up each at the top of the show.
Okay.
And
Warm
then
them
we
up a
would give
bit.
up. Oh yeah, no, definitely let them know that it is an easy amount of money that they can win. Like there's no way that they can't win $10 off of us.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and of course they're college students, so they're going to stick around for that.
Right.
And then and it was just like I bombed. I mean, there were like I would say the place I bombed the least hard was Townsend State University
Hmm.
in Townsend, Maryland, and I still remember each and every show on that on that tour. By the way,
Oh, no kidding.
oh my God, we started in Fall River, Massachusetts, at a community. Well, we started at a high school in
Oh.
St. Augustine High School in Grand Rapids.
Uh-huh.
And then the next stop was Fall River, Massachusetts, the poorest county in the entire United States of America, at a
Yeah.
Bristol Community College. In the afternoon, our stage it was lunch, it was the lunch hour, and it was a tiny stage right outside the cafeteria doors in the just in the middle of the student activity building.
Oh my gosh.
And that's, by the way, that's a lot of college shows. Like that is
Yeah.
there's a reason why the money's so good.
So whose money? Okay, so you make it, they spin the wheel, you make a joke, they don't laugh. Whose money is it that they're taking? Is it you out of pocket that you're paying
Yeah.
them, or is it some fund?
So there's a comic named Jeff who was like the tour leader, and he was getting, so he was getting paid the most. So basically, he would go to the ATM and take out $200. So it was
Okay.
like the money was technically coming out of his pocket, but he was getting paid enough at the time
To
to,
cover that. Yeah.
to cover it. And we all got paid. I mean, look, I was maybe 20 years old. I was making $500 a week in cash. I was
Yeah.
still living with my parents, so I didn't have any overhead. So like it was the fucking greatest experience, like just getting in the
Yeah.
van and going with these guys around the country.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. And are you still in touch with these? Are these guys still doing comedy? Are you still in touch with them in other aspects of your professional life, or not?
Jeff is a professional Fisher guy now. He's out of
Hmm.
comedy. And then the other guy I was on the tour with was this guy, John Viner, who's now like an executive producer at Family Guy.
Oh.
And then eventually I was fired off the tour because it just wasn't funny. I was like 20 years old and just learning how to do stand-up comedy. It was nuts
Yeah.
that I was hired for. I should not have been hired for this in hindsight. But I'd already built a rep as a good open micer, and then
Yeah.
Brody Stevens took my place.
Oh,
So
no kidding.
yeah, so I was replaced by Brody. Uh,
Wow.
Brody, uh,
Brody.
818 for life.
Yeah, man.
RIP.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Man, that's incredible. I mean, of all the people to replace you, it's a pretty good one.
And by all counts, he was perfect for that. Like
Yeah.
Brody was just built to like get on stage and with college students. Like,
Yeah.
he could have just been hired from the, like, again, I'm not putting myself down. It's just
Right.
I was
Right.
completely at the, and there's something to be said also for not doing something before you're ready, because it made me
Sure.
really gun shy about the road past the point when I should have been back out there like bombing my off as an MC.
Right.
And
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, most people talk about it like don't take an opportunity before you're ready, so you don't blow it with the people that would hire you
so
again in the future. But I mean, you bring up a good point as far as like, hey, well, that was also probably trying. It's not fun to bomb, you know.
it's
So
not it's not fun to bomb. I wasn't old enough yet to really, and it's fine to bomb in your comfort zone in New York, like, but then again, there's a great saying that I love and that I kind of live by, which is life begins where your comfort zone ends.
mm,
Right. So like I came back to New York a stronger comic for sure. Like I learned a
yeah,
lot on the road, and I'd actually, believe it or not, gained a lot of self-confidence. Like even just failing over and over, you kind of learn what not to do. And then when you get
yeah,
back in a situation where it's safer for you, you like know what not to do. Like you
right,
make less mistakes.
yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Because
Yeah,
you
well, you
want to.
develop you what? Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll tell you. Go ahead. You want to
Oh,
develop
I was
what?
just gonna say, I imagine you also develop strategies, to try to recuperate or save yourself, figure out
Yeah.
what does work as well as what doesn't.
Yeah, like for a comic, one of the biggest things is to know how to handle bombing, like
Yeah,
especially gracefully, which is something I still struggle with. But yeah, there's just something to be said also for like I feel bad for people who especially start in LA, because there's
mm.
something to be said for just bombing and failing outside of the eyesight of any industry or any people you might work with in the future.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, sure. Right. Well, I mean, that's, okay, couple things. Because one, you are a true king of the alt comedy world. Sort of all
well,
of these,
used to
off.
be. Was I wasn't even
Was.
Eugene Merman was in New York at the time when I was active in the alt comedy world. Like to
Uh-huh.
me, Eugene is the undisputed king of that scene. And to a
Interesting.
lot of people who went to those shows in New York at the time, like Eugene is number one.
Yeah.
I'm just the one that produced a concert film about it.
Yeah.
So like
Which is apparently still available on Amazon Prime in some countries
more,
or in some areas.
really, because I got to get that taken down if it is.
I mean, it's listed. It's not available in the US. So anybody
Right.
listening to this, you cannot watch it. But I
Mm-mm.
don't know. Let me know. We have some international listeners. So write in to disorganized religion podcast at Gmail. Let me know if you can watch Liam McEneaney's film.
I hope not.
Uh,
But not because it's bad. I'm really proud of it. It's just
right.
uh, well, I don't. I'll just say it wasn't making. It made no money, and
Yeah.
I was with a really good distributor. Like it's not the distributor's fault,
Mm,
because they inherited it from another really good distributor, and basically, unless you are, well, whatever. I pushed it really hard and made a little, like, made no money, but it did a big tour, festival tour, and like.
right.
But anyway, if you, Seth, want to watch it, I'll send you a private Vimeo link after the show.
Ooh, maybe so. Yeah, I would actually be very interested in watching it. I will hit you up. I will hit you up. There are a couple things you touched on, Liam, that I want to ask you about. So first is you got into stand up because, you thought I want to be center of attention, least amount of work. Do you still feel like stand up is the least amount of work to be the center of attention, or no?
I was mostly kidding about that.
Yeah, I figured you were.
But I
But
will
some people do think stand-up must be easy. I tell a funny story to my friends, I should probably do stand-up. I think that's a pretty common held belief.
tell you this. I got by for a uh, crazy long time on being a good and having a good stage presence. Like I have a naturally good stage presence, especially when I was younger. Also, I started at a time when there were just less comedians, so it was kind of easier to stand out and easier to get to know each other, and get to know people. So I got TV relatively young. I was like 25, and but I didn't have an act because I was too not willing to do the work of sitting down and writing every day. Because the thing about comedy, I can tell you, is you have to treat it like a day job if you want it to be your job. Like you have to kind of treat it like a full-time job if you want it to be your full-time job. And if you have a full-time job on top of stand-up, then you have to treat that as a part-time job that you happen to hold for 8 hours while you're working on your stand-up career. And that's literally the only way to do it. And so, like that's why it really works well if you're either born rich or young enough that you have the energy to do that.
Yeah.
But what happened was I had a combination of things weren't happening for me in my career the way I wanted them to. And I read this great Woody Allen biography by Eric Lax, where he kind of just laid out Woody Allen's early work ethic and how insanely hard he worked every day, and how like basically he started when he was a teenager. He was a writer. He wrote jokes for a publicity firm, and then the publicity firm would send them to gossip columnists and attributed them to their famous clients. And it would be like, Milton Berle was overheard at Sardi's saying, and then this brilliant Woody Allen throwaway line.
Sure.
And the thing about Woody Allen is, I'm not a fan of his work, but I love the way he conducts his personal life, right? So like he's kind of a role model to me in that sense.
Like marrying his adopted daughter, or which part of his personal life?
He didn't adopt her. She was probably, I read his memoir, and I do now believe she was 16 when they started dating. But
well, that's good. That's good.
Like the more he tried to lay it out in defense in his memoir about that, the more I was like, oh yeah, you probably did that. Like I don't believe you did the other thing, but I do definitely believe that you started dating Soon-Yi when she was 16.
Right. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. But you're talking about like his work ethic and personal, professional relationships, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, no, I was just kidding about the other thing. No, it was no, it's just like his work ethic and the fact that like, he was doing good or bad. He was doing a movie a year for a while, which is insane. Like I'm taking movie production classes now, and it is insane that he had a screenplay to finished film in a year. Like and some of them are really good.
Right.
Some of them are, but that's
sure. But I mean, if you're making one a year,
if you make one out of good 3 a great movie, that's more great movies than a lot of directors make in their lifetime.
Yeah, that's for sure. Man, so you started everything in everything in New York when you started.
Well, I started everything in New York City.
Are you from New York, or had you just moved to New York when you dropped out of college to do stand-up?
So I'm from Queens, born and raised. Okay. And then one of the things that really helped me helped me basically be able to afford to follow my dreams is my parents moved out of our apartment, and I held on to it. And so suddenly I had this like cheap rent stabilized 2-bedroom apartment in central Queens.
Yeah.
So it's like when I wasn't making any money, I had roommates. And when I was making money, I didn't have roommates,
Right.
And that's just the way it was. So it was like, when you're paying, there was a point when I was paying like $350 a month for, my share of the rent.
Right.
And, that's when you can have that, like in New York City, especially, you can have that a minimum wage job and still be able to go out every night and do stand-up comedy till like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I started in New York. I started with a really good crew of writers, actually, like guys who are still making big waves in comedy writing to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of really great comedians too. But again, this just like you're starting, like you have this crew that you started with a few years ago,
Yeah.
and some of them will drop out and you'll forget that they ever did stand up,
Sure.
or you'll do what I do with my friends, which is like you'll talk once a year and just be like, hey, what happened to that really weird guy with the really weird name who had that
Right.
terrible joke?
Right. Right. Terrible joke about babies.
Right.
Yeah. So when you started, my perception in sort of outside interest in stand up was that there was definitely a feud between, or a rivalry between, New York LA comics. Was
Mm-hmm.
that there when you started in New York?
I think it was less of a feud because you were always, I mean, part of it was like, this was when the when the internet was new,
Yeah.
right? So like, unless it was you went there and you did stand-up comedy in LA, you just didn't get to know LA comics. Like, so maybe
Right.
you go to LA once a year and do some shows and meet some people, and then maybe they would come to New York and do some shows, and you get to see what LA was about.
Yeah.
Um, and there was definitely a really good crew of very smart stand-ups, like in their alt scene, like
Sure.
Janine, Sarah Silverman, Patton Oswalt, Maria Bamford.
Yeah.
Uh, and then they would come to New York and do like a Eating It at Luna Lounge once a year, and you'd get to see them, and it would be great. Like Bob Odenkirk and David Cross lived in New York, but Bob Odenkirk would come once in a blue moon.
Uh-huh.
But then there was a whole other crew of comics, and it's still this way in LA to this day, where it's like they're not writerly, they're performing, like they're performers,
Uh-huh.
like actors whose agents told them it's a good idea to do stand up to be seen more, or
Right.
like
To
just
develop
someone,
skills.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
improvisers who like
Right.
are really big characters, but aren't great joke writers. And then New York has always been a little more welcome to writerly comics who want to explore bigger ideas.
Yeah.
And both those kinds of comics will always look down on the other, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
and also the other thing is, LA is a little bit more of like, New York, you can afford to be a little more writerly and a little more like artsy because there's less opportunity to really make big money.
Mm.
So it can feel a little more like, arts, like whatever art incubator. I'm forgetting the word for it. Whereas LA, there's so much
Art
business.
house? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's like so much business here. Writers' colony.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many more opportunities to audition for stuff and like, really try to do bigger things out here
Yeah.
that you can't really afford to spend as much time around and like exploring every avenue of thought that you've had. And like, there's less room for like guys to stand on and women to stand on stage and be all mumbly and like low energy and just like staring at their gold lame sneakers. And like you have to
Right.
really kind of bring it in your performance here, like to a degree that you don't have to in New York.
Yeah.
And also the audience like is more receptive to broader comedy here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a different expectation. And I guess on the inside world, agents, managers also push for, if you're doing stand up, then it's like, hey, why don't you do more acting? You should take a class. And I feel like it's vice versa, right? Actors.
Well, especially I also started after the comedy boom had bust,
Uh-huh.
right? In the 90s. So, but there were still comedians signing big sitcom deals. Like it was before the development deal kind of went away.
Yeah.
So the other thing was, what's your character? What's your 5-minute set? What's the hook that we can make $500,000 selling your sitcom pitch to NBC?
Yeah.
Right. And there was a lot of that too. So especially again in New York, there wasn't as much of that. But in LA at the time, it was a lot of like you'd see these LA comics and it'd be like, hey, I'm Johnny Italian. I'm from Staten Island. This is what my wife is like. Yeah, my mother-in-law is crazy, and my 2 kids are making me nuts.
Right. And then it was just, the whole sitcom saga afterward, right? That they could sell. Yeah, that is.
It was the Ray Romano thing, where Ray Romano
Right.
had the perfect 7-minute sitcom set that he brought to Montreal, that he could then turn into Everybody Loves Raymond seamlessly.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So what brought you from New York? When did you move from New York to LA?
I moved here over 4 years ago.
Gotcha.
And the reason I moved here was because I had just hit a professional ceiling in New York,
Uh-huh.
and there's just a point where you have to say, this was great. It was working for me. Now it's not working for me. What do we do next? And
Right.
if you don't ever do that, then you stop growing. And if you stop growing, then like you just stop developing as a comic. And if you stop developing as a comic in any way, then you just stagnate.
Yeah.
And even in the open mic scene, you see the people who they started out, they clearly had an idea of what they were going to do. They had this germ of an idea, and just for whatever reason, they enjoyed the party aspect of it more than the work aspect, or they just got really fed up because they just gave up on trying or whatever, and then they stagnate and end up at open mics doing the same 5 minutes over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like you see these people and you're like, well, yeah, that is a funny joke, but you have to write more of that all the
Right.
time.
But what else? What else do you got?
And it's scary to go out on a limb and change your act up. And then one
Right.
day look back and you're like, oh, my best joke is my worst joke now. I have to get rid of it. Like this
Yeah.
scary thing. Growing up
Yeah.
and evolving is scary as
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's probably another area where bombing on the road over and over again, sort of this inundation of just, well, now you're desensitized to it to some extent.
right. But also, it's like if you only stick to the city and you only stick to the shows you're comfortable with, it's like these improv theaters, right? It's a very insular world, and it becomes a showbiz fantasy camp, is what I call it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with stand-up, where if you just stick to the one thing that you really feel comfortable in, where you're kind of the big dog, and people know you and respect you, and you don't break out of that world, you just end up in fantasy camp. And by the way, that includes some people who make a good living.
Sure.
It's not just in the sometimes people just they get revered by a cult, or not a cult, not the Mormons, but not literally.
We're not there yet. We're not there to that point yet in our discussion.
Sorry, I was trying to segue seamlessly. No, but believe me, I was raised in a cult, so I say that with nothing but love.
Oh, interesting. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear about which one.
It's about as nice a cult as you can hope to be born into. So it's disappointing, but anyway, it's just like you have that audience. It can be a big audience.
Yeah.
But the thing is dude, believe it or not, someone like Larry the Cable Guy or Jeff Foxworthy, they'll do something new. I'll see in their stand-up, and I'll be like, all right, you know what? Larry the Cable Guy still trying. He's still taking swings and missing sometimes.
Right. Yeah, but you see it on all scales. I think this is what you're talking to. In the open mic scene, even there are people who are like, well, I like this location, this one location for open mics, and they're kind of the big insider there, and you don't see them anywhere else. They only go to that one venue.
Or people who become big deal in the Des Moines, Iowa comedy scene.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They come to LA and they just bomb spectacularly.
Sure.
By the way, I picked Des Moines because there is no comedy scene, and I don't want anyone to think I'm taking shots, because you meet everybody. But it's like, they come here, they do their 3 minutes at the store potluck, they bomb like crazy. You see them do a couple of shows that they hooked up, some like Comedy Dojo or whatever. They bomb, and then you never see them again, and you can see in their eyes like, this.
This was not worth it.
No. Yeah. Or guys who stay on the road too long and then they come back and they're no good. Or, just like Also, the funny one is I saw this a lot in LA when I moved here. Was I'd see comics and I'd be like, man, you know what? She's really got something, and clearly she's been doing this for less than a year. And if she just
Yeah.
sticks with this for another 5 years, she'll be great. And then you
Right.
find out she's been doing it for 12 years, and you're like, ooh,
Yeah,
ooh,
you're like, oh my gosh, really? That
yeah.
long?
You know what? Maybe comedy's not for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, it is terrifying. I mean, I started all in LA. So, I saw the people
Right.
who I thought like, "Oh man, you must be on the cusp of doing these late night improv spots."
Hmm.
And it's like, "Oh no, I've never gone to the improv." It's like,
Right.
"So what are you doing then?" "Well, I just
Right.
like doing it here in this bar and,
Right.
Okay, very interesting. In talking about developing as a comedian, I agree with you. I think there's a healthy level of delusion that we all need when we
Hmm.
start out. My question is, when do you think, or if ever, it fades? When does that delusion fade, and you sort of take a realistic look at yourself, your act? When does that happen? Do you think, or does it?
I think if it's going to happen, it happens. I got very lucky. I this is such a weird, this is just my life. I was just had a string of months where I just could not get a laugh on stage. And
Hmm.
I just decided to, like, I really decided to quit. I was like, you know what, man, this has been fun. This has been a fun way to spend these past 5 years. I had some good time, and maybe it's just time for me to quit. And I quit. This is true. I quit, and then a few days later, I got a call from someone at Comedy Central that they wanted me to be on a TV show, and I was like, well, I guess I have to unquit now.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm back, baby.
Same thing happened. I was gonna do. I was like stuck in this call center job for a year and a half, and I had just started working my ass off again on my stand up, and I was just like, you know what, man, I'm writing good jokes, but maybe I just need to take a couple years off and get
Mhm.
myself together financially and get my head straight on this. And then I auditioned for Best Week Ever, and I got it. And then that led to a writing job, and I just wasn't in the headspace of quitting anymore. So it's like
Right,
you kind of have to really like not quit if you want to make it in stand up, but you
right.
also have to really like be able to listen to that inner voice when it says, this is not working, what do we do to fix it? Because I did
Yeah,
premium blend with my 5 minutes that didn't bomb on the road.
yeah,
Because I was also, because then I was set up with like road gigs to open for comics to just warm up for my premium blend appearance. And
yeah.
then what happened was I was doing like the 5 minutes that worked, and also 10 more minutes that just would eat everywhere. Um, and,
Sure.
and I was like, opening for comics I respected, and I was like, this booker was really nice to me, and he got me road work, even though he got nothing but bad reports on me.
You
Um,
don't know that. You don't
oh
know
no, of
that.
course I did. Dude. I was on stage. I was the one who had to look into the eyes of the Catch a Rising Star in Princeton, New Jersey, for
Uh-huh.
6 shows in a weekend. I can tell you, I did not do well, and I guarantee if I got a good report, uh, the manager was high when he wrote it. Um,
Yeah. Well, you're a delightful person to be around. That's got to count for a good portion of things. Easy to work with, I would imagine. So,
I was easy to work with, but I was also not a delight to be around because I was young and terrified.
ah,
Like I would sit there before every show and pray for a bomb threat to clear the building so I could get paid without getting on stage.
right. Oh man, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so funny. Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, I mean, you survived all of it though. Survived all it. Thrived. Thrived, in fact.
Well, listen, I'm
Uh
telling the bad stories because they're funnier, but there were also
Right,
a
but I
lot of
mean,
like,
clearly you have. I mean, I know that I've seen you do incredibly well on stage, and it's not like
yeah, I'm
TV
great.
producers and bookers are just trying to find someone that has the guts to get up there. You clearly have the clout to do what needs to be done.
Well, it's also like I'm not telling the stories of like it's not fun to listen to someone tell endless stories about how they killed or like, but there were also a lot of just stories I don't remember, which were just little shows
Yeah,
or mics where I just was like, okay, wow, that really works. Or, like I did a show at the Irish Arts Center with my friend Veronica Mosey, and I
Uh-huh.
had a bit that just almost worked but didn't. And then she said, no, you have to do this thing at the beginning to set it up. And then once you
Mm,
set it up, you can do all the. I remember clearly it was for the a bit I had about greeting cards, because I was
yeah.
reading an article in the New Yorker about greeting cards, and I was just like, oh, nobody does a bit about that. So I did a bit about greeting cards. She showed me how to fix it. I then learned how to write that type of joke,
Mm,
which then made it easier to write that type of joke the next time I wanted to write that joke. And it's like, and then the next time I used that joke in a show, and I hate to, sorry to use this word, but I killed. And I
yeah.
was like, oh my God. So this joke went from being something I was ready to like, rewrite like crazy, into
Yeah.
being a joke that is done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense. I mean, what this is the last question before we get into the religion stuff.
Dude, I could
'Cause
talk about myself for 3 hours. So
and I could talk about you for 3 hours.
if
So it's mutual. It's
I were
mutual.
friends.
Um, I am curious about what kept you, other than the olive branches from the universe to keep you in stand up. These jobs that you kept getting when you were ready to call it. What else kept you doing stand up? What about the art form do you like?
Well, I really do like, the feeling. I love the feeling the first time I do a joke after I've written it fully and it works and I know it's done.
Yeah,
It's a very addictive feeling to nail a joke, have it do well again, and have it like just do well over and over again.
yeah.
Um, it's led to a lot of things that I would have never done if I'd done a straight job, for sure.
Hmm.
I've been, excuse me, I figured out ways to self-produce European tours, and I did that for like several years in a row.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people that I really admire or that I'm a fan of that I never would have met through, like, if I wasn't doing stand-up. Like, it's just
Mm.
like to have someone that you really respect also, uh, but not just like respect, but like someone who's famous, right?
Yeah.
And like someone you're a fan of, and that you've been a fan of maybe before you even did stand-up,
Right.
tell you after a show that they really like what you did. It's a
Yeah.
huge feeling. Like, it's like, uh, it doesn't happen every day, that's for sure. It happens for me once in a blue moon. But when you
Yeah.
get that from someone that you're like, whoa, I used to watch you in movies when I was 14 years old, and then
Right.
they pass along word that they really enjoyed the set they watched you do,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh my God, that person who has affected my life so much enjoys what I do. Like,
Yeah.
there's no, so there's gifts you get like that. And also, I mean, uh, you know, the hope is that, I'm almost at a point where I make a ton of money,
Hmm.
and then I have three
Yeah.
houses and, uh, two wives.
Sure.
Speaking
I
of
mean,
Mormons,
I love it. Yeah. What cult did you grow up in, Liam?
I grew up Buddhist. I grew up in a Soka Gakkai cult, not cult. I mean, sect is the word we use to be polite.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it wasn't like we lived on a commune. I mean, I grew up in New York City, so it wasn't like I was
Yeah.
physically separated from the outside world. But there is that mental separation
Yeah.
from the outside world. It's just like you're kind of encouraged to get other people to join, so
Hmm.
that then your friends can be members. So you're not friends with non-members.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's a lot of proselytizing involved.
In Buddhism,
But
or at least in this
in
sect of
in
Buddhism.
in this sect of Buddhism,
Yeah.
like they had people in Union Square literally saying, "Hey, do you want to make a lot of money? Join this. Come chant with
Interesting.
us."
So how would
Oh my
you
God.
do you mean
It
do
was,
you mean not necessarily that was their pitch, but what were the
it
beliefs,
was
I
their
guess
pitch.
really is my question. What were the beliefs that you grew up with in this Buddhist sect?
See, so here's the thing. I still like the practice. I still do the practice. Like, to me, I like being in touch with the higher power, and I like,
Uh-huh.
having a daily spiritual practice. I think it's important for people to like maintain that contact with something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
Because you meet people who don't, and they're like brains like marbles, like they're very in and of themselves, and it's hard to get in
Yeah.
around. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I'm
Well, and
really
I've
involved.
noticed with the pandemic, sorry, I mean to
No, no,
cut
go
you
ahead. I
off,
was about to make a
obviously,
funny
but
joke.
I
I
want to
think
get
it's
back to you. I'm just saying that in the pandemic, it also feels like there's a sense of stress that is higher for people, at least anecdotally for me that I've talked to, who don't have this belief in connection to a higher power or to an overarching purpose
right.
than those who do.
Well, that's why I'm so involved with Q right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, it's a good group. It's a good group of people. They're very active, very
right.
inclusive.
I would say the big pitch for people in Q is it's not inclusive.
Well, it depends. It depends on which group. If you want
Yeah,
to be part of the group, they want you.
right. That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean the truth is like, but uh, it's I forget what we were talking about. But
Well,
yeah,
we were talking
but
about
you're
the
right.
beliefs that you grew up with. You
Oh, but
like
you're
being
right. Like,
connected to a higher power. Yeah.
but like people in the pandemic, that's it. Like people in the pandemic right now, especially, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are keeping physically separated from everybody else.
Right.
And
Right.
human beings are not built for that. Human beings are, we're basically pack monkeys at our
Yeah.
core. And we need to be surrounded by other pack monkeys in order to feel secure and safe and, like on a solid emotional foundation. Right. So it's like, there's a lot of that going on. And I think there's just a lot of people who are like emotionally spinning off and, just like really kind of getting unrooted from everything. And I do feel like having a daily spiritual practice, really helps you keep rooted to who you are in your core as a human being.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I tease you for your Mormon, for you being a
Right.
Mormon, but it's
Right.
also like, I also at the same time, like I understand that, you have this set of beliefs that you live by and that you probably believe. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know you as your inner self, but I know
Right.
like you talk a good game at least, right? So it's like I know that you have these
Sure.
beliefs. I know you live by them. I know you have 3 wives in that house of yours.
Yes. Right. Of course. We're all very comfortable. And they all
No,
support me, which is great.
did you see that they're like polygamy is making a comeback in the Mormon community?
I mean, I guess I'll ask you to clarify. What do you mean making a comeback? So what I saw, I'll tell you what I saw, and then you can clarify what you mean. I saw that in Utah they're trying to get laws that
Right.
decriminalize or at least lessen the punishments for polygamy. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's
I should
still,
say
yeah.
mainstreaming. They're mainstreaming polygamy again.
No, no, they're very far from mainstreaming polygamy. Thank goodness.
I would
But they are
say
trying to decriminalize it as not the church. That has nothing to do with the church. That's legislators in Utah because they're sick of charging polygamists with felonies essentially.
right.
So I think they're just trying to, instead of put them in jail or prison, just take some money and walk away.
I gotta say, I've driven through Utah. First of all, Mormons are the worst, scariest drivers I've ever encountered in my life, and that
Yeah.
is not a joke.
No, 100% terrifying, terrifying state to drive in.
I watched on the road into Salt Lake City, and I may never forget this. I may fucking lose my marbles one day, but I'll never forget how
Yeah.
scary this was. There were two cars with the perfect size gap to get a small car in.
Hmm.
Car squeezed into it. The car behind him refused to slow down just out of principle, and I respected that. So the car in the middle just put its hazards on and started to slowly slow down.
Yeah.
And then I guess the driver behind was like, "Oh, I guess this guy's a problem." And then as soon as he got far enough behind him, the hazards went off, and then he was just in his space. There's a lot of
Wow.
that on the roads around Utah.
Yeah, I mean, for being a Christian people and a love thy neighbor people, that does not happen on the road.
And also, I would say one thing you guys don't talk about, because like you're a normal Mormon, you're like a Donnie and Marie type Mormon.
Sure.
But then you get into the boonies, and then they're like the weird hillbilly inbred Mormons,
Uh-huh.
and they're a little, they're a trip when you start talking to them, because they're just like
There
fucking
are
hillbillies who are who don't
yeah,
look right.
right. It's I think it's kind of the remnants of the slightly inbred polygamist lines from the
Right.
late 1800s, early 1900s that just percolate on through. I don't know what it is about the country, but yeah, it does change the way people look.
And I did a couple sets in Salt Lake City. Nobody found any of this funny.
It's too close to home, Liam.
I don't
And
know.
I mean, I will say Salt Lake City as a population has become less Mormon, less member of the
Really?
Church of Jesus Christ. So
That's interesting because I mean it's like all there. I mean like the
sure.
the temple.
Yeah, all
I
the
saw
headquarters there.
Jesus.
But I mean, a few years ago, maybe 7, 8, it might have been almost 10 years ago now, Salt Lake City was named like the gayest city in the US or something.
Pornhub did a study, and it's the place where gay porn is watched the most in the United States.
There you go. Sure.
Um,
I guess that was their criteria. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, how anyway, so
so
fascinating.
you were
But yeah,
raised
Salt
in
Lake has changed quite a bit.
the Mormon religion, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. My
Okay.
mom, so my dad was as we call born in the faith, that is his parents were also members of the church.
Uh,
And my mom converted a few years before marrying my dad. So,
I went on a Bumble day with a lady who very delightful,
yeah.
who had converted to go to Brigham Young University because it's
Oh,
an
sure.
affordable college apparently.
Yeah. So
And
she converted to pay less to go to BYU?
but then she became now she's a really devout Mormon.
Oh,
Like so
okay. So
then
it all worked
her
out for her.
yeah, like the faith really took hold with her.
Yeah.
Like to the extent where I was like, I had a really good time with her, but I had to really at the end of the day, you know, after the date was over, take
Yeah.
stock and say, am I ready to like because when you date a Mormon, it's a
Sure.
commitment. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like a hey, we for 3 months and then it doesn't work out and we go our ways separate
Yeah.
ways.
I
It's
mean, you
like
certainly shouldn't be doing that if she was truly devout.
we only went on the one day. We're still friends.
Right.
But it's like I'm not saying I her. We did not but but I'm
You
saying
made
like that's
love. We get it. We get it. Yeah.
but it's like because I grew up in this Buddhist sect, I've been
Yeah.
very always been very interested in Protestantism and all the different offshoots of the Protestant faith, including the Mormons. So
Right.
that's something I understood when she told me that she had her whole story. I was like, okay, so like this will never be a casual thing. It's almost like I have to decide right now if I maybe
Right.
want to convert to Mormonism somewhere down the line.
Right.
To like be with this woman forever and ever for the rest of our lives.
Right. Right. Yeah. Faith does become a very important aspect for us as a people. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So what are some of the beliefs that, I mean, okay, so this connection to a higher power, but I mean, I have to admit there are some religions that I feel like, okay, I understand kind of what drives them. I don't quite understand the Buddhist religion, other than, trying to attain this sense of connection or oneness with deity. Is that is
Well,
that accurate, or how what was your experience in the Buddhist faith?
short answer, yes. Long answer, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because there was one Buddha. Some call him Siddhartha,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like Christianity where you know whether you're Mormon or you're Southern Baptist, you have the same text, right?
Right.
Like the Mormons have the Third Testament of Joseph Smith, but
Right.
you still I'm guessing you still adhere to the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Old
right?
Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, and then Doctrine and Covenants are sort of major books of Scripture, and then Pearl of Great Price. But I kind of lump that in with the Doctrine and Covenants. So
Do you and this is serious belief, do you believe that Jesus was born in the United States?
oh no, we believe Jesus was born in Jerusalem, that he was a Jew, and
Okay.
is ethnically Jewish, right?
Right.
But that he visited. So after he's crucified and resurrected in Jerusalem, he visits the American continent.
Okay. Before we
Yeah.
got here.
I mean, before you and I were born, yeah. But in
Right.
30 AD, 34 AD,
Uh-huh.
visits the American continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was actually curious about where you were with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Yeah. So
my
yeah.
point is just like you all believe in Jesus, right? You all believe in the
Right.
crucifixion,
Right.
right? So it's like with Buddhism, there's a lot of it's like a big empty room with a million doors.
Uh-huh.
And there's just the Buddhists of India and all the beliefs they have, and there's the Buddhists of Japan and China, and there's just a lot of different beliefs. And I like the general circular view of the universe, where it's not like a linear thing, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like you come from ashes, you live your life, you die, and then you spend eternity somewhere else. I like
Mm-hmm.
the idea that there's a circular view of time in the universe where there's no beginning. I was just reading about this one post-Vedic I think it's called, God, I'm so bad at regurgitating knowledge, like
That's a
really bad at absorbing and then spitting it back out. I think it's called
sure.
some samana,
Hmm.
and it's just this idea that time is like a snake that swallowed its own tail, essentially,
Mm.
and that our lives have no beginning and end. It's just an endless series of cycles.
Yeah.
Uh, and with that, there's the idea of reincarnation, birth and rebirth,
Yeah.
and the idea that but what really is a common belief is karma, which is the idea that, in a nutshell, that there's an energy. Basically, it's almost like the force, right? There's like an
Yeah.
energy field around us, and the way we live our lives and the way we conduct ourselves affects our karma, and that then affects our lives, but it
Mm.
also affects the lives of people around us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the idea is that we can live many lives and spend those lives like spend our lives over and over working on our karma to one day approach like the level of perfection that the Buddha
Mm-hmm.
attained. And the
Attained.
idea that
Right.
there are almost like prophets who were born after the Buddha who have perfected their practice to the point where they also attained enlightenment, Buddhahood,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's it in a nutshell.
Got
um,
it.
if you ask me what my belief is, right? So it's like I believe that I know just enough to know that I don't know and I don't know enough to know I
Sure.
say I know anything for sure.
Yeah.
I also have come to the conclusion that our universe is vast and limitless, and there are so many things that our brains are not physically capable of perceiving. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like someone who's born blind having sight described to them, where it's like
Yeah.
we can't even ascertain the things that we can't sense in our universe,
Right.
right? Like we can't even begin to imagine the things that we don't know.
Yeah.
Like what if, like, for instance, ghosts aren't ghosts, but they're also something that we're barely built to even perceive out of the corner of our eye,
Right.
or like what if like so like what if those are other beings that live interdimensionally? I'm not saying I believe
Yeah.
this, but I'm saying, like, what if
Yeah.
ghosts are actually beings that live interdimensionally, that we are once in a blue moon able to just perceive, and our brains like register them as people shaped when they're
Right.
actually something completely different, right? So it's
Sure.
like, so that's my feeling about religion, is like I don't know a lot, but I do know that if I maintain a connection with my higher power, then certain things happen. And if I live my
Yeah.
life a certain way, then certain things happen in certain ways where I'm taken care of in my life.
Yeah.
And these are things that I can point to and say, I maintain my practice, and there are things that cannot be rationally explained by science or even the evidence of my eyes and ears, but they happen anyway. And all I can do is just say, okay, well, that's by the way, I don't smoke weed. Can you imagine how unbearably long-winded I would be if I
love
fucking
it.
did smoke weed?
I love it. Who
But
knows? But at least you're making sense. I think what would happen would be you would just ramble incoherently about something.
Hey man, let me tell you about the collective unconscious, man. We're
Yeah,
all like
exactly.
connected, man. The mushrooms.
Hold on,
and the
man.
man.
I need to eat something, man. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. So do you believe in reincarnation or no?
I have to be kind of agnostic about it because there are some people who swear that it's real, and they swear that they've got evidence that they lived past lives. And there's people who are like, I knew certain things about something that there's no way I could have ever known because I never learned about them in school. And, I just kind of take them at their word and say, okay, well, that's weird and unexplainable.
Right.
But unfortunately, death is the great mystery, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no proof that there's, at the end of the day, there's belief and no proof, right?
Right.
Like, do you personally believe, not the Mormon religion, but do you personally believe that if you live your life in a certain way, you get a planet in outer space, and then your family lives on your planet with you?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I do. Yeah. And it's not even just that we get a planet, we get to create other planets too, right? Like we become like God. We become like Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother. We're making spirit babies. We're sending them to Earth or to equivalent planets. We're continuing the work, right?
Isn't that blasphemy, though?
No.
Notice to say that to say you believe in God as the all-powerful creator, and then to say, and then I, a mere human being, could one day attain godhood.
Right. No, we don't count that as blasphemy. I mean, technically my faith is pantheistic. We don't worship many different gods. We worship, our Heavenly Father, but we believe there are others like him and like Heavenly Mother that create, you talk about the universe being vast. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I wholeheartedly believe there are aliens out there. Do I think we'll come in contact with them? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did. And if they looked really similar to us, would not be surprised by that at all.
Do you so you must have done the year where you went and ministered, right? What, not ministered, what's the
Right.
word?
So I served my mission. We call it a mission.
And that's mission.
Yeah. So, and it's 2 years. So for a young man, 2 years. Yeah. Okay. So I did that. I was in Eastern Canada, the Quebec province.
Oh, the Quebecois.
The Quebecois, baby. Yeah.
But not,
so I
not
spoke.
Montreal. You were like,
what's that?
Not Montreal, like BC, right?
No, like
BC,
like Montreal. I served about 6 months on the island of Mount Royal, kind of in the center of Montreal. Yeah, and then all over the Quebec province. Yeah,
dude, that's amazing. That's like me and my weird tour, where it's just
right.
go and you.
Yeah, exactly. And I went to all these different places, knocked on doors, bombed over and over and over again. It was great. It was terrible, but it was great all at the same time. I learned a lot. But yeah, that's where I was. I can't wait. I want to go back for JFL. I want to get a spot on JFL. I want to go back. I want to use some French on stage and, have fun. I want to go back. Absolutely. As a comedian.
It's a good goal. I performed in Montreal at the Comedy Zone a billion years ago. But But I just have a couple friends up there I really want to see. I mean, once all this over,
Yeah.
and I've got some stuff I'm working on, but hopefully by the summer I'll be all vaccinated. I just want to get in my
Yeah.
car and just go see all my friends. I want to go to
Yeah. I think we need to just call like a month vacation for everybody in the country. Just go wherever you want, do
right.
whatever you want to do,
Right. The government will pay
relax.
you one more month.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right. Like,
exactly. Exactly. Just take a vacation, get out of your house.
walkabout.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, so Liam, what do you want after this life? If you could have your druthers, your pipe dream, what would you want to experience? What would you want there to be?
I gotta say, living on my own planet and creating other planets sounds pretty dope.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty good, right?
it's the whole everything else you have to do to get there that doesn't sound like much
Well,
fun.
no pain, no gain, baby.
The Jehovah's Witnesses are great because they believe that 144,000 of them will ascend to heaven, and everyone else is like you. But
Right, and that's
144,000, and they have the names of all 144,000. It's not even a
right,
mystery. Like they've
right.
just, and it
I
changes depending on who they'd like.
Yes, and I just can't believe. I mean, I can't imagine going to that church. I don't want to rag on other faiths, but it is
I will,
shocking to me that it's like you go to church and it's like, I hope none of you make it. It's
dude.
like I'm
I
the
will
only
tell you
one that I
this.
want to go.
My last roommate is named Kyria Abrahams, and
Uh-huh.
she wrote a book called "I'm Okay, You're Doomed," and
Yeah.
it's all about growing up Joho and how she escaped from it.
Wow, no kidding.
And
Interesting.
it's actually pretty well written, which
Yeah.
is always surprising when a friend of mine can pull something off like that.
Sure.
Um, but also just it's incredibly fascinating look. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, all religions have their right. Like,
Of course.
like do you believe gay people are evil?
No, I don't believe gay people are evil. I don't really believe people in general are evil. I mean, obviously there are some terrible people out there, right?
Right.
But no, I don't think that gay people are evil. Do I think homosexuality is an immoral practice?
Oh,
Yeah, I do,
okay.
but not in the sense of like, I mean, it's sort of in the same sense that like premarital sex is an immoral practice. Right. I was saying that I think homosexuality is immoral in the same way I think premarital sex is immoral. So in like I don't feel driven to campaign against people being married in gay marriage. I don't feel driven
Right.
to chastise people for practicing homosexuality because I don't think it's really hurting anybody, but I don't think that's the way that we are supposed to be interacting with each other. For a lot of that is I believe gender is eternal. I believe gender is important, and I believe gender is finite. That is, we are either male or female.
Right. So, but so do you look at it as like being gay is a choice that people have made at some point in their lives, like consciously or unconsciously,
I
or
mean,
is
for
it?
some, maybe. For some,
uh,
maybe. But I think for the most part, no, it's not a choice. I think it's a challenge, right? I
right.
mean, it's an unfortunate, I think, challenge for a lot of people. Or not unfortunate, difficult. It's a difficult challenge. If you're going to be a member of my faith and homosexual, that's a really difficult challenge.
But so, if the Heavenly Father created someone gay, how could it be wrong?
Yeah, and see, I don't think that like for the same reason I don't think Heavenly Father like creates people who have one arm, or like I
Okay.
don't think Heavenly Father purposely creates people to be like, my kids have a bleeding disorder. I don't think Heavenly Father purposely created them that way.
Right.
I think we're in a fallen world where there are deviations, right, from the perfect,
Right.
from what was going on in the Garden of Eden. So, in that sense, I think the resurrection will clear up some things. There are rare rare disorders where people are born with both sets of genitalia. Does God create that person? I don't think so. I think that's, a sort of misfortune of the way cells come together, right?
Right.
Do I think that's all going to be corrected in the resurrection after this life? Yeah, 100%.
So what's the
100%.
resurrection? Like just that's when
So
Jesus comes back.
well, the resurrection kind of, yeah, I mean, Jesus was the first to be resurrected.
Mhm.
And then after everybody sort of lives on this earth, there will be a resurrection where people are, and in my faith, we believe in sort of stages. There's a first resurrection where all of the holy people, all of the righteous people will be resurrected, and then, kind of down the line, but everybody will be resurrected. That's the unifying of spirit with perfected body.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of people coming back.
Yeah, everybody, baby. Grand reunion. It's going to be awesome.
It's gonna be tough getting a reservation at restaurants, that's for sure.
You'll just create your own food. It'll be right there. Boom.
And so you
Wherever
think people will come back not gay? And they'll just be
Uh,
like, whoa, that was a crazy phase I went through.
right. I actually don't think that either. So I think for people, I guess this is the way I'll put it. If you want that to be part of your identity eternally, it's just so important to you. I think you'll probably come back that way. Or at least feeling like that, right? But does that mean that you're an evil person? No. But I do think that if you are unwilling to sacrifice that portion of yourself for God, then you're not going to make it to what we call the celestial kingdom. You're not going to make it to, world creating tier heaven, right? Just like there are aspects about myself that I find important, or at least kind of make me who I am. Some anger issues I have, some judgments I have about other people. If I can't give those up, then
Right.
I'm not going to make it there either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's like been a big thing for me, is turning over, especially judgment of other people.
Yeah. And
You know,
I don't know how, I need to work on it, but I
we
think
were
there are
having,
aspects of ourselves that religion asks everybody to give up something. And I think that's another thing. Is it a big thing? Some people, yeah, it's a huge thing.
if I was 25 and having this conversation with you, I'd be busting your balls till you're furious.
Well,
Um,
if you need to channel that part of yourself, let's do it, baby.
no. It's
Yeah.
I've given up that fight.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not here. What I like about what I'm trying to cultivate in this podcast is just a good, let's figure out where we disagree and let's figure out where
Right.
we agree, and we can agree to disagree.
I mean, the thing is, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like about life, as the
Yeah.
way I see it, is that I see it less as like a perfect design and everything is fit into it, and more as like, I don't know if you've ever done a thing where you've spun a wheel and put paint on it,
Paint. Oh yeah.
and
Of
just like
course.
some of it spirals and some of it splatters and it's just a
Yep.
big mess, and then you stop the wheel and you look at it from a distance and you're like, oh, that was a pattern that nobody was planning on, but it looks really beautiful.
Sure.
And so that's how I feel about life, and about this world, and about this world we're put in, where it's just like,
Yeah.
there's less design and more just, things that are amazing. And actually, I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things I really love about people, and I used to hate people. I've really come around to loving people. And
Uh-huh.
part of that was just, I had to quit drinking over 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
part of the program that I quit drinking in is about turning over. And it's a
Yeah.
big part of that. It's like, it's a big step you have to take. The first two steps you have to take are about admitting you have no power, and then admitting that there's a power greater than yourself,
Yeah.
who can bring you back to sanity. And then the third step, which is the one that it took me many years to learn, to really start practicing, in my opinion, correctly, is giving everything over to that higher power.
Yeah.
Like everything, saying I can do the things that are in front of me, and then everything else I give over. If you think it's God, I give over to God. Right?
Yeah.
The phrasing in the program is a God of my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right. So that is, and for some people, that's the closest they ever come to a spiritual belief.
Right.
It's just giving it over to this higher power of your understanding, of your choosing, sometimes even.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I've learned to really love people. I've really learned to love even people who I disagree with or I don't like. Like you
Sure.
can dislike someone intensely. That being said, do I love Donald Trump? No. Do I love
Yeah.
do I love his family? Absolutely not. I hate them, and
Yeah.
if a form of bees attacked them, I would hope it would happen on CNN live.
Sure.
But to me, I am just willing to say I'm not gay. I'm not even like one of these like cool millennials who like is experimentally or like will
Right.
sometimes sleep with a guy because he finds it like just like that's an attractive guy. Like there's just kids
Right.
like that in the world, and it just boggles my mind that we live in a world where just kids think nothing of it. Like kids are just very like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm gender fluid. I prefer to be referred to as they, like in the multiple.
Right.
And to
Right.
me, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't always even agree that I should respect certain things that I'm told I have to respect. But
Right.
at the end of the day, I'm just like, man, you know what? That person has found a way, has found what they are, right? Like what
Yeah.
they are inside, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful, right? So it's like to
Yeah.
me, if someone's like, it just makes me happy to be gay, not even be happy. It's like this is what I am. This is what I
At
want. I'm
peace.
gay.
Right. Yeah.
I only am attracted to other men. I find women's vaginas disgusting.
Right.
I will only sleep with women when I'm really drunk. Uh,
And
which is
think they're a man. Yeah.
lot of gay dudes in New York who will tell you that they've slept with women when they got drunk. But it's like
Interesting.
I mean, also I started stand up so young, and in
Yeah.
this New York City Lower East Side performance art scene that like I very quickly had to overcome because I grew up in Central Queens, which is hillbilly territory almost. It's
Uh.
very redneck where I
Uh-huh.
grew up. And I grew up with a lot of preconceptions about race, a lot
Yeah.
of preconceptions about women, a lot of preconceptions about gay people, like the
Yeah.
that you don't even know you're thinking until you step outside that and you get another perspective and you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I can go to 125th and Broadway and I won't be shot dead as soon as I walk out of the subway station, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some people, again, they come to LA or they come to New York and they never leave. I once did a show. I know we're going long, but I just want to say I once
No,
did this
you're
show
good.
Fort Greene, Brooklyn, black when it was a black neighborhood. It's now very gentrified, but it was an all black neighborhood, all
Yeah.
black bar, all black audience. I was headlining a show of like 5 white comics, and it was one white dude after another who went up, and all they did was talk about how uncomfortable they were to be performing in front of a black audience.
Yeah.
And it was like very, and then I just got up there and I looked at the audience. I just said to myself, like, man, these are just people who paid to have a good time. Like, what are these, like, what are we doing here? So I just
Right.
did my set for them and it did well. And I was just like, yeah, because there's they're just, they might have a different cultural perspective than I do. There might be
Yeah.
like things that they don't find funny or that they just didn't grow up with, or
Yeah.
this or that, but they're just people who want to laugh and will respond to a good punchline if you have one.
Right.
And so it's like all the that I had to learn over and over again when I was 19, 20, 21 years old, just
Yeah.
about like the diversity of life on earth, and about just like, okay, you know what, there's gay people, they're
Yeah.
not predatory like all the people I grew up around say. They're not
Right.
they're not all like the stereotype gay dudes I would see in 80s comedies where it's
Yeah.
just like mincing around with a limp wrist, like lisping
Right.
all the time. And there are guys like that, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah. More power to them.
but the
Yeah.
majority of people I met were just like what I had grown up thinking of as like normal people. right? Because like you grow up in that thing where it's like, well, this is what normal is because this is what we all are. And
Right.
then you eventually realize like, oh, there were probably gay people in Queens where I grew up who were terrified of even saying they were gay because they might get murdered.
Yeah.
Because like dudes would come from Long Island and New Jersey and Staten Island to Christopher Street in Greenwich Village, which was like the gay mecca of the East Coast.
Right.
And they would murder people on the street for being transvestites or for being openly gay or for like making out with their boyfriend or whatever.
Right.
Right. And so it's like,
Yeah. And see
and,
that, I think objectively, way more evil. Way more evil. Right.
but you know, if you ask these people, they would say, oh, I'm a good Catholic.
Right.
Right. They would
Yeah.
say, you know, that person is a deviation from God's plan, and therefore they're evil. God doesn't love them, and they're going to hell, and they're
Yeah.
not 100% human,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like, so to me, it's important to like kind of just identify those things within myself first and say, okay, I have this prejudice about this thing, you
Right.
know, like I'm still wrapping. I'm old enough to say I'm still wrapping my mind around the gender neutral thing, and
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I've had it explained to me, and I'm still not entirely sure what that's supposed to be. Right?
Right.
I mean, you have an idea that gender is fixed.
Yeah.
I I just say sei gesund, go with God. If you feel like you were born in the wrong body, I really hope you're 100% certain before you have the surgery. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like um you know, I wonder about kids who make that determination when they're 10 or 11 years old and start the hormone therapy early in
Right.
their, you know, I hope to God that like they're making the right choice and they're not choice. Again, not a choice, right?
Well, I mean, as far as, choosing to have the surgery, right?
Or the
Like that's a
hormone.
choice.
Well, nobody's going to do bottom surgery on a 12-year-old, but they do
I
have
mean,
13-year-olds on
hormone, they
hormones.
have hormone blockers,
Yeah.
which, yeah, it changes you. That changes your physical body.
It changes your brain chemistry too,
Yeah.
right? Like suddenly you might be injecting a ton of estrogen in a developing body
Right.
that was maybe, you know, was set up glandularly for
Yeah.
testosterone, right?
Yeah.
So like on the one hand, you want to support a kid and you don't want to ostracize them and you don't want to bully them or drive them to suicide. And you don't want them to like wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person for
Right.
feeling a certain way. Right. But at the same time, you're like, well, when you're ready to take a drastic, permanent, life altering step, I pray to my higher power that you're making the correct step. Like it's the right
Yeah.
decision to
Yeah.
do that. And it's
Yeah.
a decision to allow your kid to do that, you know?
Yeah. I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
And then what's hilarious too is like there's the parents who like very openly and loudly talk about their kids like that, and it's like, well, you know what? It's well, your kid have some privacy, like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's
there's
not
no
your
social
choice.
media.
Right. And it's not your choice either. You should let
Right.
the kid decide. I mean, if we're going to give the kid enough power to decide if they're going to change their physical body, you can at least pay them the courtesy to make the decision about when to talk about it.
Right, not go on NPR 2 weeks later.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Or sign some TV deal. I mean, just unbelievable.
Because
Yeah.
then
I think
you're sending the message. I feel like I might be wrong, and I'm just preemptively defending this.
you were talking about people. How you want to connect with people, find commonality, kind of destroy stereotypes or preconceived notions about them. That's what I love about comedy too, because growing up in Utah, I sort of had this monolithic view, or I guess what's the word I'm looking for? This universal view about what all people think, and it's been nice to use comedy in a way to find commonality as I've discovered, oh no, everybody actually thinks a million different things. And yet comedy can bring us together. And, that's what I think religion was supposed to do, was bring people together. But unfortunately, like a lot of things, it's been used to divide, which I don't think is the right way to live whatever faith you have.
My favorite is the Catholic Church's move, which is to just go into a place and absorb their gods and just
Yeah,
turn their gods into Catholic saints.
it's not
That's what they
bad.
did with the Irish. That's
Yeah,
what they did with the Druids. What they did with all of South and Central America. Like it's you know, uh, the Catholics were just like we're like the
yeah.
Walmart of religions.
We're gonna
We'll
make
just
it
go in and set
universal.
up. And, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I want to
I'll,
give you, I know you've asked me some questions, but I want to formally allow you to ask whatever questions it is you have before we wrap up. So, Liam McEneaney, what's the deal with Mormons?
what could I say that would really just offend you to your core about your religion? That's what I really want to know.
Is that what you want to know? And then you want to say it?
No, it's just we've discussed everything else. It's just something I find
Yeah.
very interesting.
I
Because
don't
especially
know.
Mormons, like
Yeah.
the Mormon Church is officially on the side of the Book of Mormon is hilarious, like the musical, and they take
Sure.
ads out. They take ads out in the playbill for it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've definitely listened to the soundtrack. You can't be cool with everything that goes on in that musical. Like it just
Right.
like
No, I mean, I'm not, right. I'm not jumping up and down for the way they portray, the colonization of our faith.
frogs and
Yeah. There are aspects of that, yeah, it's not like it makes me angry though. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything
I mean,
that,
isn't even like offend isn't even like make you angry. It's like just kind of touches a part of you that just you dislike, where you're like, yeah, I don't like you saying that. I wish you wouldn't,
oh man. I mean, I guess, yeah, I don't know really how to answer that. I'm trying to think about, I don't know. I mean, I think it's more personal. There are definitely things you could say to me personally pertaining to my faith. Like, I don't like it when people are like, well, you're bigoted because you think homosexuality is a sin. Right. I don't like that aspect of, I think, kind of popular perception of the Mormon faith. Trying to think about any other examples. I mean, I don't know, some of the social hot button issues, right? Homosexuality, transgender. I feel anytime someone says, well, you are evil for thinking that these people should not be the way that they are, that irks me a little bit. But it's not, it's like, well, yeah, I'm not saying you have a bad point. I'm just saying that's not.
What if I
don't
said?
know. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well.
What if I said to you,
Yeah,
I don't think you're evil for feeling that way because you were raised in a religion where this is just the belief and it's just the world you were brought up in, and I understand that.
right.
But it's a little hypocritical to say, I don't agree with the way you're living your life, and I base that on the way that I live my life.
Yeah.
That some people don't agree with, and it makes me really makes me angry when people say that to me. But it's all right to say that to you. Like, is that something that will, and I realize I'm phrasing something I actually believe in a rhetorical question that's meant to be funny. But it's like, is that something that would be really offensive if I just said that straight out instead of like wrapping it in a riddle?
Well, no, but I mean, if that's the way you really feel, Liam, just tell me. Just tell me that's the way you really feel.
That is how I feel. I feel like
yeah.
I feel like it's like a moral hypocrisy to say,
sure.
I know that I'm living the right way, and therefore you're not, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, so I'm taking the word evil out of it, and I'm taking immoral out of it, because at the end of the day, like there's no evil or immoral in that. It's the evil and immoral is in the way you choose to treat the people that you don't like, disagree with, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I do think that there is a moral hypocrisy to that, where it's like, my church and my faith puts me in the standing to then say that you're wrong, but I'm right, even though other people will point Like if you look at the writings of Arthur Conan Doyle, that guy was hard on Mormons.
Yeah.
That guy was wrong about the way he portrayed Mormons in The Sign of the Four, I think it was.
Right. In the first Sherlock Holmes book or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, they're not
Yeah.
murderers. They're
Right.
just people who have their faith who live in Utah. Like,
Right.
they're not a kill cult.
I mean, I think he was playing with this sort of. Now, there are some sort of violent moments in Mormon history for sure.
Right.
And I think he was playing off of that with the perceived sort of pacifist over, I think generalization of the Mormon people. I think generally people of my faith are relatively pacifist, not an overly violent people. So I think he was probably having a lot of fun with that too. But no, I don't. I guess I will say this: I don't see the moral hypocrisy, because it's not that I'm saying I'm better than someone who is homosexual. It's
Right.
what I'm trying to say is I have my own challenges that are different from the challenges facing a homosexual person, as far as like all of us getting to heaven, right? So it's not that I'm living, the right way or even better. It's just that I'm living a different way that is in line in one aspect with what I perceive to be God's plan or God's desire. And there are other ways I live my life that are contradictory to God's desire, and they're just not as open or as public or whatever, right? And so, sure, you can call me on that, but you might not know those aspects of me, right?
Right.
But I'm willing to say that those are definitely aspects of me,
Now I feel like when you bring up polygamy, it's like a sensitive subject for Mormons too. Is that like something
Oh,
offensive?
no. I
Oh,
think it's touchy in the sense that, people assume, based on the way we're portrayed in the media, that polygamy is still happening. So I think that might be defensive in the sense of people being like, well, no, we're not polygamists anymore.
right.
And we haven't been, for 100 years. Isn't that great? I think that's the only sense that I've got growing up. But no, it doesn't offend me. I'm disappointed, right? When there's a show that's like, oh yeah, we're Mormon and here are my 4 wives. I'm sort of like, oh, come on.
Sister wives.
Yeah. Aren't we past that? Aren't we past that now? I thought, but it's not necessarily offensive. It's just disappointing, like a true dad would say.
I would say polygamy sounds like it involves a lot of listening.
Yeah.
And if you can do that much listening, maybe you are eligible for sainthood.
Right.
Ooh,
Well,
I hope nobody heard that. I hope people tuned out a long time ago.
oh man, I love it. No, I think, polygamy is an interesting aspect of the faith,
Right.
because it's not like the church as an organization or even theologically has ever come out to say polygamy is evil. What we've said is, as a church, is we don't practice it now essentially because it's illegal. But who knows what'll happen if it is deemed legal, right? That's a big question that I have. So when you said, I heard polygamy is coming back, I was like, oh, well, I don't think it is, because we would have gotten an email or something, but it could. And to be honest, when I read, the decision about homosexual marriage being allowed, it is the Supreme Court case. It's hard to imagine a world where polygamy is not also allowed in the relatively near future.
Right. Do you only watch clean stuff? Because I know you like produce a clean comedy show, and
Yeah.
you're a clean comedian, but it's like, forget
Yeah.
about whether or not you agree with South Park's many jokes
Right.
about Mormonism. Like, do you even
Right.
watch South Park?
I've seen a couple segments of South Park. I've never actually seen a whole episode, but it's not because I didn't want to. It's just we didn't have cable when I was young, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I've just never really sought it out. But I mean, I talked to people on my mission who that's how they knew about the Mormon faith was South Park,
Right.
100%. And it's not like South Park portrays Mormons actually terribly.
No, there's a whole running joke about how they're the only people that get to heaven.
Right. There's the fate. Like, I don't know. There's an episode where they end up all in heaven. They're like, well, who was right then? The
Right.
Mormons.
Mormon,
So yeah. So no, I think Matt Stone, Trey Parker have a pretty, I think all things considered, actually pretty accurate portrayal of, the episodes they've done about Joseph Smith. From what I can tell, very accurate. Actually, as crazy as those episodes are, quite accurate. Yeah, I think they look at, at Mormons as kind of quaint people that don't intend to do other people harm, but might be a little traditionalist,
right.
in their thinking. Maybe a little, quaint, I think is the best way to phrase it.
They certainly don't hit you guys like science. But do you watch Eddie Murphy, or do you watch
Yeah,
Dirty
yeah, I
Shows?
do. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I've seen, yeah. I've watched, I've watched R-rated movies. Is it recommended by the faith? No.
Right.
No, it's not, but it's not part of our kind of worthiness questions either. I think the idea is, I don't know. My perception of my faith is that there's a big aspect of it that is personal. So if you feel you can maintain connection with God, then you can do or consume kind of things that you want, right? As far as media goes. Now, I will say, does it make it more difficult? Like going through Breaking Bad, does it make it more difficult to feel the spirit? Yeah, it does, 100%. So, I think you take that into consideration as you consume less holy media.
Here's my last question about Mormonism.
Yeah.
You live your life right.
Yep.
You're on your planet.
Yep.
You're able to create other planets. What kind of planets are you creating?
I mean, I don't know. My friends and I would talk about, like, when the Matrix came out, it'd be cool to have a Matrix planet where you can like defy gravity and stop
Oh, I see.
time.
Not where you're like really hooked into machines.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
trying to kill you.
exactly.
Okay.
One of my friends wanted to make a skiing planet where you skied all the time. It was snowing all the time, just perfect slopes. You could just, I think most likely the planets we're going to create are going to be like Earth. They're, intended to sustain life. And, but, we have 8, I don't know, where are we now in our solar system? 8 or 9? What did we land on with Pluto?
8. Pluto's not quite a planet, and then there might actually be a planet beyond that.
Right. So I maybe those are the play planets. I don't know. Maybe there's crazy cool stuff we can do on Jupiter that we just don't know about yet, right?
So that's really interesting to me, and maybe the most relatable thing I've heard about Mormonism so far is that as a kid, you and your friends would just sit around and discuss what kind of planets you would make.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. Like
right. Well, when it's part of the culture,
Hey, look, where I grew up in Queens, me and my friends once had a very long conversation about what gay sex would be like. Because we had learned about the birds and bees, like, in third grade or something, maybe even younger. So we knew it was penis and vagina.
Right.
But then we were like, so my one friend had his mom, he had 2 sisters, he had a mom, and then his aunt, who is not related by blood, who lived with them, but because they didn't have enough bedrooms, she shared a bed with his mom.
Yeah.
And one day he said, I know that when 2 women have sex, they use a fake. So we were having this conversation. He's like, so I know when 2 women have sex, one of them puts on a fake penis, and that's how they have sex. So maybe when 2 men have sex, one puts on a fake vagina, right?
Right.
So I literally just assumed that was how gay people had sex until I was in my late teens, maybe even 21. And one day really thought about it and was like, oh no, no, they have sex. They just each other.
Yeah. They don't need to wear anything necessarily.
No, but it was just like something that, because I was so young, and just the first idea that I'd heard that made sense. And I never really think about it a lot. You're just, one day I was just like, oh, of course, the Why would they like that? How would it even physically work? Like,
Right.
maybe you put
Right.
it between your legs and
And just go. I don't know. Who
I don't
knows?
know.
Yeah, who knows? I should say, given those comments that you just made, I should say that, as a church regarding what media we consume,
Right.
obviously pornography is a big no-no for my faith.
Right.
There's also, I think general counsel to consume the best books and movies and, whatever it is possible, right?
Uh-huh.
Personally, do I adhere to that all of the time? I do not. I stand guilty and accused, convicted. I do not do that all of the time, but that is the general counsel. So,
When you say the best, do you mean morally or just of quality?
both, but mostly morally, right? I mean, we should watch. I wouldn't. I think quality. There are classic books that deal with really difficult topics, and
Uh-huh.
it's hard to deal with difficult topics without talking about those topics.
Right.
But I think there's kind of a time and place for all of that, right? So it's not like in grade school you're reading Tess of the Dubervilles,
Right.
Um,
It's
but
even as an adult, I'm not reading Tess of the Dubervilles.
right, maybe for
I've never
different
read
reasons
Tess of
though.
the Dubervilles.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, right? Like I think it's one thing to watch. I don't know. One discussion I actually had with my dad was about the movie Fargo. So classic Coen brothers film, right? I imagine you've seen it.
Yes, multiple times.
So relatively violent film, certainly not by today's standards, but when it was made, fairly graphic. But the overall moral of the film is incredibly wholesome.
Right.
And so that was a movie that my dad told me about because, my friends and I had wanted to watch it. And my dad was like, no, you should not watch it now.
Uh-huh.
But he was like, it's a fantastic film. I'll tell you everything about it because I've seen it. Is it necessary for you to watch it? No, but you could. I mean, obviously, when you're a full-fledged adult, watch it. But you should not watch it now. So I
Right.
saw it when I was like, I don't know, 28, 29. Fantastic film.
Yeah, what's funny is it's a great movie. I just have so many Coen brother movies I prefer to it.
Oh, sure. I mean, they're
uh,
fantastic filmmakers. I'm just saying, as far as like what we consume, we
Right.
should look for pieces of art and works that glorify good morality. Now, you might have to go through sort of terrible experiences to get to a good morality, but there's difference between watching a film like I don't know, Kramer versus Kramer,
Right.
where there is full frontal nudity, but it's brief, it's in one scene, it's kind of, arguably part of the arc of the story, and pornography, right?
Right.
There's a different point to those two medias, or to those two works of art, if you want to call it that.
Hey man, the Renaissance period was full of just full frontal nude statues.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Michelangelo's David is a work of art, and
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not that as a faith we try to avoid everything that is sort of, part of the real world, but
okay.
do we try to avoid aspects of, Hollywood or media in general that glorify immorality? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we do. Right.
Do you identify yourself as like a Mormon comedian?
No, I think of myself more as a comedian who talks about his faith.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's more relatable. I think that's more relatable to people. But am I Mormon? Yes. Am I a comedian? Yes. I guess I don't know. Are we? I suppose there's a semantic battle we could have.
You get up there and you're like, hey, you guys might be wondering why I'm so white. Well,
Right, right. No, usually my opener is I am married, but I'm also Mormon, so I'm still kind of out there.
that's a great
Anybody,
joke.
any single women want to hit me up? Want to go to heaven? Hit me up. That's usually the opening line.
You should hook up with those dry bar guys.
I really should. I need to get a good solid like 20, 30 minutes on tape and send it to him.
I have the dry bar channel on my TV because it's like
Uh-huh.
one of the Samsung high def channels. So just like I've
Oh
watched a
yeah.
lot of, yeah, it's all shot in Provo. So
Yep. Yep.
anytime someone is on there and they're talking about the Mormon faith, it does huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's the saying, no prophet is accepted by their own people or in their own land. I'm a little worried. I mean, the people that I fear the most are, friends and family.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but the other thing is the just the idea, the sports idea of playing in front of your hometown crowd is always the best. I will
Yeah.
I will tell you, I've recorded 2 albums and a concert film and a
Yeah.
couple of TV spots in New York City, like in front of my people, and it just makes you more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like there's something about doing a show in front of a crowd that you're not 100% comfortable in front of that can really even have the littlest bit of intimidation, or you know intimidate you a little bit. It's good to
Right.
feel free, right? So like,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I guess where I have issue is I worry. So faith is so important to people, and I
mhm,
find some, joking about aspects of my faith liberating in LA because nobody cares truly about my faith in
right.
LA, right? People care very deeply about their faith in Utah, in general, just because it's 90% LDS, and so I worry about performing in front of a crowd in Utah, doing jokes about our faith that they won't agree with because it doesn't quite click. I need to know. I don't know if I want to find that out at Dry Bar, is what I'm saying.
No, I
I'm
understand.
actually I'm actually going to St. George, Reform in St. George, for a couple of shows with Kim McVicker. So we'll see how that goes. If that goes well, then
It'll be
I'm gonna
good.
I'm gonna send a tape to Dry Bar immediately. If it doesn't, then I'm gonna be glad I haven't yet sent a tape to Dry Bar.
I mean, I've done a ton of Irish shows and I've done a ton of Jewish shows. And my
Yeah.
experience with all those shows is, you know, there is also the sense of someone who is familiar with the culture coming in and pointing out things that everyone has seen but not noticed.
Right.
And there's that real sense of like, we do that,
Yeah.
and because it's someone who's us, we're not offended.
Right. And that's the aspect I need to really, I think, work on
Yeah,
tapping into. Yeah.
because the thing is, if I went into Provo and did all your bits about Mormons,
Right.
people would genuinely be upset because they'd be like, "Who the is this New York guy who's not Mormon coming in and making a polygamy joke as his opener?"
Right.
But if you're like, "Hey, I'm a Mormon,"
Yeah.
then that really gives you this mental free pass to say a lot. I mean, obviously, if you start talking about Joseph Smith, if you
Right.
start talking about the big statue of Jesus in front of his planet, in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. The
temple, like
Christus, baby. Yeah.
any of that
Yeah.
stuff,
There are
boy, they
aspects
don't
that
find that funny. They do not
right.
find that funny, man. That is,
Right.
you
Right.
could,
Well, I think yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm excited to see how St. George goes. That'll be a
right.
very good, I think, exercise for me.
When's that?
May 20th and 21st.
So you plan to be vaccinated by May 20th and 21st?
I mean, I plan to be still socially distant by May 20th and 21st.
Sorry, I say that to every comic who tells me their road plan.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope all of them are vaccinated by May 20th, 21st. I
It's
have
always,
nothing against the vaccine. I am just so far down the list of priority individuals.
I have never been happier to be an obese asthmatic. Uh,
So when are you getting your vaccine? Are you getting it soon? Couple
dude,
weeks?
dude, the state of California is so. They're just getting the elderly people.
Yeah,
Like
I
they
know.
they have not vaccinated all their doctors and nurses here yet.
I
So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I understand the need to vaccinate kind of that end of the front line. But don't you
right,
think by now they've already had it? I've waffled back and forth on this because it's like they're taking it the most seriously. They're being the most careful. So maybe they haven't had it and it would be
right.
good to vaccinate them. But it's also like odds are they've been exposed to it and actually have built up what the vaccine would give them anyway. But
I'm going to tell you, I've known people who have gotten it and then gotten it again.
right.
Like getting it is no guarantee of like permanent. And in fact, they don't even know that the vaccine is going to be a permanent solution either.
Yeah, because now you have new strains from
Yeah,
England and yeah,
yeah, like the Beatles
crazy.
of. Okay, but anyway, so I'm also really like honestly just here for the spring. I think in this
Yeah.
apartment. Um, and but Dr. Fauci and Joe Biden say April, and I'm willing to hold them to that and see in April where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that's it. I
Part of
hope
it is the
that's it.
previous administration only purchased 100 million doses
Yeah.
for a nation of more than 100 million people.
Right. Well, I mean, I think they figured by that point most people have had it and survived. So,
And I'm going to tell you something else, which is there are some people in this town who have a lot of money who have very quietly gone and gotten themselves vaccinated, who are not high on the priority list.
yep.
But especially if you can afford a concierge doctor.
You were saying that all these people making movies and TV have been vaccinated, or a lot of them at the top have been vaccinated.
Some of them, but
Yeah.
they've never officially said it. I mean, but look, as a friend of mine once said, LA is a factory town, but
Yeah.
the business, the product is show business. So,
Yep.
but look, I got to go to the bathroom. I think it's.
Hey, man. And we've been talking for a good while. I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're a busy
Dude,
guy.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad we waited till this week actually, when you didn't have to talk to Jamie Kennedy afterwards, because we were able to really get into it a little bit.
It was great. Yeah, it worked
Yeah,
out perfectly, I thought.
worked out
I loved
perfectly.
the discussion. And I miss seeing you, Liam. I miss seeing you out there,
Uh,
you know?
you know what? You'll see me in person one day, and you'll be like, that's overrated. Turns out I didn't miss him.
I mean,
Um,
maybe, but I doubt it. You're the voice of a generation, Liam. We need you.
I am the Papa Hemingway of comedy. I have to remember that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
all right, man. I got to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna sign off. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it,
Thank
brother.
you. Thank you, Liam. All
All
right,
right,
you take care, bud.
talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.